you are a registered dietitian in private practice thinking about hiring, yes, hiring for the first time, or maybe you already hired and it is not going great, then this video is going to save you a shit ton of pain, a whole boatload of money, and probably a few tears. For those of you who don't know me, I am Amy Plano, the reimbursement dietitian, and I run an insurance-based practice, a coaching program for registered dietitians, and a credentialing agency. So I have employees across all three businesses, and I am telling you right now, I did not figure this out gracefully. Shocking, right? I hired wrong multiple times. I made mistakes that cost me thousands of dollars, damaged relationships, and honestly made me even question more times than not whether or not hiring was even worth it. But here's the spoiler, right? It absolutely is, but only if you do it right. So today I'm walking you through exactly what I did wrong, what I learned from in each mistake, and more importantly, what I would do differently if I was hiring for the first time today. Because nobody in our field is talking about this. And honestly, I think that's really the problem. So if you are a dietitian, a CNS, and you're running a practice, and hiring is anywhere on your radar, you have to watch this whole video. I promise you will leave with a completely different understanding of how to approach this. So let's get to it. So the first mistake of many, to be crystal clear, was not necessarily a bad hire. It was not hiring at all. So it was waiting way too long to make my first hire, right? So I kept telling myself, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that I wasn't ready, I couldn't afford it, and I needed to hit a certain arbitrary revenue amount before I even considered it. I needed more patience. I needed it to feel more stable. But in the 20 years of running an insurance-based private practice, shit never feels stable. And even 10, 15 years after I made my first hire, I'm still not sure if I feel ready to hire. But the whole time I was waiting for this magical moment to appear where I felt safe. And if you can relate, I was literally drowning. I was seeing patients all day. I was doing billing at night, answering emails at all ungodly hours, handling scheduling, people switching their appointments, canceling their appointments, updating CAQH on my lunch break, working 8 jobs, doing verification of benefits on the way to one job, but somehow convincing myself that this was normal, right? This is just what private practice should feel like. But that was wrong. So here's what I did not understand. I was not saving money by doing everything myself, right? I was actually spending it. I was paying basically for all of these things with my time instead of a paycheck, right? And so every hour I spent on admin was an hour I could not spend on a higher revenue producing activity like seeing a patient. And when you start to do the math does not math, and it is essentially pretty brutal. So let me break it down, okay? If you are spending 15 hours a week on administrative tasks, right? So scheduling, billing, follow-ups, emails, prior auths, that's 60 hours a month on administrative activities. If you could see half of those hours in patient sessions, and let's use a low ball figure for the amount per session. Let's say it's $100 per session, right? That's $3,000 a month in revenue that I'm going to say this from a place of love, you are choosing not to make, right? An administrative hire essentially at 15 hours a week would probably roughly cost you about $1,200 to $1,400 a month. So you could spend $1,400 to make 3,000, right? So that is not an expense. That is a return on your investment, right? I know it is really hard to digest this because I know it was really hard for me to digest this, but I did not see it that way at the time. I saw, probably like you see, hiring was a cost, not a growth strategy. And that kind of kept me stuck for much longer than I probably would care to be, right? So if you're sitting here telling yourself you cannot afford to hire, I need you to do the math, right? I need you to make sure that the maths for your own practice because calculate what your admin time actually is costing you in lost revenue. And I do really think, like it did for me, those numbers are going to surprise you, right? So that's a sign that you're ready to hire really, even if not you feel comfortable or safe, right? The sign is that you've hit a ceiling in your practice and you cannot break through it alone, right? If you're honest with yourself, you probably hit that ceiling months ago, but who's counting, right? So mistake number one was not hiring soon enough. Mistake number two, I see this all of the time. So I finally decided to hire. Great, growth mind activated. I'm doing it. And then once I pumped myself up to do it, I did hire the wrong person. Not the wrong human, but the wrong role. Okay. My instinct at the time was to hire another dietitian, right? Because that's what I knew, right? I know the skill set of a registered dietitian. That felt familiar. It felt a little bit easier. So I brought in another dietitian to see patients. I thought in my head, hey, we'll just like double revenue. It will be amazing, right? And on paper, that does make sense, right? But in reality, it was a disaster because I was still doing all of the administrative work alone, right? So I had two clinicians seeing patients and zero people handling the back end. I was billing, I was still scheduling, I was managing referrals, I was doing verification of benefits, I was doing credentialing updates, except now, right? Except now, we were managing another person and another person's schedule, their documentation, their patient questions, their onboarding questions, all of the things, right? So I did not hire help in this instance. I actually hired more work, which is very silly. What I actually needed first was an administrative assistant, right? Somebody to take the non-clinical tasks off of my plate so I could operate at the top of the food chain, right? Somebody to handle my scheduling, manage the phones, manage my inbox, follow up on claims, check on patient paperwork, all of the things we all know when we are solopreneurs that we do. That one hire, an administrative assistant, virtual assistant, an office manager, whatever you want to call it, that hire will literally change everything for your practice because it gives you back your time. And your time is what generates revenue. Period. Full stop. End of story. So here's the rule that I wish somebody had told me. Your first hire, write this down, your first hire should free up your time to do more of what only you can do, right? If you're the only clinician, your first hire should not be another clinician. It should be a person who literally takes everything off of your plate so you can see more patients, right? So once your schedule is full, and you physically, literally cannot see any patients, then you hire another dietitian, but not before, right? I see dietitians make this mistake constantly. They jump straight to hiring a clinician because it feels like the obvious move. But if you are still drowning in administrative shit, another provider is not going to free up any time. It's actually going to cost you more time. So the biggest mistake I made, the second one, was hiring the wrong role, right? I waited all of this time, pumped myself up, and then hired the wrong human. Okay. Number three, I think I literally have a shit ton of videos on this topic. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, but I don't think people understand why it is so near and dear to my heart. And this is the concept of independent contractors and employees. This is single-handedly the biggest mistake I see dietitians making right now, and it's the one that nobody wants to talk about because everybody's doing it. So I was doing it. So when I first hired, I classified the person that I hired as an independent contractor, aka a 1099. Because, right? Why did I do this? It was easier, it was cheaper, and I did not have to deal with getting a payroll company at the time, paying payroll taxes, workers' comp, unemployment, benefits, any of it, right? I just paid them. They sent me an invoice. Super simple, right? Except it wasn't simple, right? It was actually wrong. And in many states, although not Connecticut, it is illegal to hire registered dietitians as independent contractors based on our taxonomy, right? But here's what registered dietitians don't understand. The biggest difference between an independent contractor and an employee, it's not your choice, right? You don't get to decide based on what's more convenient for you. Who do you think decides, right? The IRS. The IRS has very specific criteria regarding independent contractors. And I can tell you firsthand, they do not fuck around and find out with independent contractors. So if you're telling somebody when to work, where to work, how to work, this one's one that dietitians don't like. But if you're providing them with your systems, right, your EMR, you're giving them templates, you're giving them protocols, you're showing the expectations for charting. Essentially, you're training them on how to do things your way. That person is an employee, period, right? It does not matter what you put on the contract. It does not matter if you tell me you let them make their own schedule. It does not matter what they agreed to. It doesn't even matter if you both prefer that individual to be an independent contractor. If the working relationship looks like employment, it is employment in the eyes of the IRS and generally your state labor laws, right? So, and the consequences of getting this piece wrong, you guys know I am not a big fearmonger, but the consequences of this is real. Back taxes, penalties, fines, potential lawsuits. If that person ever files for unemployment and you classify them as a 1099, your state is going to come asking questions that you do not want to answer. And just to be crystal clear, as somebody who has hired as independent contractors and had to flip a team of 10 to employees, I am not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you this because I wish someone had sat me down, smacked me, no, not smacked me, but explained this to me before I made the mistakes. I see dietitians in the Facebook groups every single day asking, should I hire a 1099 or a W-2? Like it is a preference, like you are choosing your favorite ice cream flavor. Not to burst your bubble, but it is not a preference, right? It is a legal classification based on the nature of the working relationship, right? So now now can you legitimately hire an independent contractor? Yes, absolutely, right? If you're bringing on a dietitian who has her own business, sets her own schedule, uses her own EMR, has her own insurance companies, does patient care her own way, and probably works in multiple practices, that's a legitimate contractor relationship. Say you are going on maternity leave and you're bringing in somebody short term, legitimate contractor relationship. But if you are hiring somebody to work in your practice on your schedule, using your EMR, on your insurance contracts, following your protocols, seeing your patients, right? That's an employee. Set up payroll, do this shit right, because it is going to cost you more upfront. So payroll taxes, workman's comp, unemployment, yes, it adds up, but it costs significantly less than the alternative, which is getting audited and finding out you're misclassifying workers, right? So if you are on the fence on hiring, talk to an accountant, talk to an employment attorney, and get this shit right from the start. So you do not have to face any of the tax and legal consequences of doing this later on. Okay. Stay with me. Couple more, just two more for you. Mistake number 4. Also, it's like I feel and see myself in so many of you guys because I have done these things. So mistake number 2 was not having a financial runway when I did my first hire. So, and this one doesn't feel like a huge mistake until you're staring at your bank account at 2 a.m. in the morning and wondering how you're going to make payroll. So when I hired, I did not have enough money saved. I did the math on what the person could cost per month, and that's okay. I could cover that with my current revenue, and technically I could, but barely with nothing left over, right? I didn't account for anything else, right? So payroll taxes are about 7 to 10% on top of their wages that comes out of pocket. On top of that, there is workers' compensation insurance. There is unemployment insurance. There's the time it takes. I just refer to this as like non-client facing time that you have to spend orienting that new hire before you even start making money. So the possibility that a slow month happens and suddenly payroll feels fucking terrifying, right? And so essentially, you're one bad month away from a full-blown panic attack. And that is not a position I want any dietitian to be in, especially when you're training somebody to grow and scale your practice. So here's what I recommend now. Before you hire, have a minimum of 3 months of what a person's total cost operating would cost you, not just their hourly rate times the hours you anticipate them working, their total cost. So wages, payroll tax, insurance, and everything else in between. I really like 6 months of operating expenses, but let's not be greedy here. 3 months gives you breathing room and it gives you time to train them properly without feeling like every fucking dollar is on fire. So it gives you a cushion if revenue temporarily dips while you're restructuring your organization, right? So if you don't have that saved yet, that's okay. That does not give you permission not to hire. It's a reason, though, right now to set a fire under your ass to set a savings target that you can work towards intentionally. So I want you to open a separate account, label it hiring fund, and start putting money aside each month. When you hit that number, you pull the trigger. So then hiring at that point should feel strategic, not like a financial gamble, right? Did you write that down? I need you to write that one down. Okay, I'll wait. Just kidding. Mistake number five, the last one. The last one, let's save the last one. Let's see if the last one for, the best one for last. And this is the most embarrassing one to admit. When I hired, I had no structure. I had no job description. I had no template for interviews. I had no offer letter. And this was like pre-AI. This is pretty much at the beginning of the internet. So no offer letter, no employee handbook, no onboarding process, no training. I had nada, right? And that's not shocking because I think I was probably working 5 jobs at the time. So I basically said, here's your login. Here's what I need you to do. Figure this shit out. And then I was frustrated when things didn't go the way I wanted them to get done, right? Surprising, shocking, right? That's not a hiring problem. That's a leadership problem. And it was my fault, right? That was the first time in my career that I realized that many things in my life may not be my fault, but they were my problem. And this was very different. This was my fault and it was my problem, right? You would never see a patient without a skill set and a care plan, right? You would never start MNT without assessment, goals, documented treatment, right? But we will hire a human and give them literally zero framework for success. And then not only wonder why it didn't work out, get pissed when it didn't work out. So your first hire deserves the same level of preparation you give your patients. Actually, they deserve more, right? Because that person is going to be the foundation as your business grows, right? So before you bring anybody on, you need a clear description that outlines exactly what they're responsible for, right? An offer letter documenting compensation, expectations, terms, an employee handbook, even like a super basic one with your policies, procedures, communication, time off, code of conduct, as well as an onboarding checklist that walks the hire through their first 2 weeks, and a training plan that shows them how you want things done in your practice, right? I know that part feels really daunting, But what I have experienced hiring for the last 15 years is that those first 2 to 3 weeks are critical when you bring on a new hire. And so it's kind of like anything in life where you want to make your best first impression. How you handle those tasks within the first 2 to 3 weeks will ultimately determine what that relationship looks like long term, right? I know I say this a lot, but you build these things once they work for every hire than that. And more importantly, when you do these things, they protect you. If something doesn't work out and you need to let someone go, you want the documentation showing that the expectations were clearly communicated from day one, right? And so I didn't have these things on my first time around, probably my second time around or my third time around. So I want you to have these first and foremost. So I have all of these now, but the difference between my early hires and my current team is literally night and day, right? Not because I got luckier with people, but because I got better at setting them up to succeed, right? I became a better leader because I put better resources, tools, and processes in place. Okay. I know that was a lot, but super, super, super important. So let's recap, all right? Let's recap the 5 big mistakes that I made when it came to hiring, right? Number one, I waited way too long. I waited until I was drowning. I want you to do the math on your administrative time and see how much it's costing you and hire before you hit crisis mode, right? Number two, shocking. I hired the wrong role first, right? Your first hire should generally free up your time, not add to your caseload, right? So think about administrative hires before a clinician. I know it seems like ass backwards, but just take my advice on that one. Number three, the biggest one, and probably one of my biggest regrets in my career, is I misclassified employees as contractors. You need to understand the legal difference, talk to an accountant, set up real payroll, right? If you want to grow your empire and you want something that is sustainable, you need to do this shit right out of the gates, okay? Number four, I did not have enough money saved. Make sure you have 3 months of total employment costs, bare minimum, before you pull the trigger. And number five, embarrassingly, I had no structure, right? Make sure you guys have a job description, an offer letter, a handbook, onboarding plans, training checklists, all of the things so your people feel welcome, right? They feel comfortable and they feel stable, right? So we need to build the framework before we bring somebody in, right? Hiring is the single best decision I ever made for my practice, but it took me getting it wrong multiple times before I figured out how to get it right. And I do not want that for you, right? So if you are a registered dietitian or CNS thinking about hiring and you want to go deeper on all of this, the Practice Growth Collective, which is level 3 of my reimbursement membership, is exactly where you need to be. Okay. And I built it specifically for dietitians who are already billing insurance and ready to scale, right? But you need help with scaling, onboarding, revenue expansion, all of it, right? And the cool thing is, I have already done all of the shit. I have all of the resources, everything you possibly could ever need to start hiring, whether it be hiring an administrative assistant, hiring a social media team, hiring a marketing team, hiring a dietitian, right? What we do is we have monthly strategy calls, we have weekly calls in between. You get access to the full scaling training library. And if you want eyes on a specific situation, then you get yours truly to come in. Always bearing. If you want my opinion, I will definitely give it to you. So we're going to put the link below. Level 3 is your room you want to be in if you are just about ready to hire or you've hired and shit has gone ass backwards. The good thing is you're not alone. I have been there. Level 3 can help. hit the link below, check it out, and I'll see you on our first strategy call.